You turn my morning into dancing. Your love changes everything. There's something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love, something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing.
Good morning, Rooted Men. It's great to be with you this morning. It's wonderful outside. The weather, the rain turning to freezing rain, turning to snow, back to rain, just makes me reminds me how much I love living in Michigan. I just and to have grandkids here and not in Florida. What do you do, right? But it is Christmas Eve. You believe it? It's like snuck up on me. I've been doing through the Luke devotion every single day, and there's 24 books in Luke. So if you start on December 1st, on the 24th, it's over with, and you basically have lived Jesus' entire life before the holiday to help you understand why we do what we do, why we celebrate, why we go to church, why we worship. There's so much in these books of the Gospels that we forget because we read through them once, or we read through bits and pieces, never realizing that the entire book is amazing and a challenge too. There's stuff in there that it's not easy to understand. There's stuff in there that you look at it and you go, what? But they've asked for another day. For today, let's see who's with us, and then we can get started on the devotion. Chuck B, it's always great to have you with us. And Brian, good morning. And this Papa Khan and Bert Reggiani and Dave Donnelly and Ken Gooch. I think that's who we got. I think that's pretty good, though. It says 8. Let's see what it says. It says we have 1 in Greendale, 6 on Tom's YouTube page, and 1 Facebook. So we're doing great. I always love seeing the numbers from Greendale. It's kind of fun. To me, it is anyway. What do you do, right? So today's verses are from Genesis 22, and we're just going to do verses 1 through 8, and Tom's going to finish them up after Christmas. This is the last Rooted Men until next week. I believe it's next week. I think, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're not doing Rooted Men. He's just going to do his regular strengthening with the devotion from the book. Anyway, let's get to it. Let me see if I can share the page, because I should have did that ahead of time, and I did. Oh, that's not too bad. Let's see if I can find it a little bit better. Hold on. We're getting there. This is not a professional broadcast. Okay, hopefully you can see that. And we'll start right with verse 1. What do you say? Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain. I will show you. I can't imagine Abraham hearing God say that. I can't. Can you imagine what his mind's going through? The sickening feeling he has, and the heartbreak, and now God's telling him, think about what he's been through. Think about, he was told in the beginning that his lineage not his lineage, but he was told that he would become a great nation. He'd waited through so much. He packed up everything he had and moved to Canaan because God told him to. At 75, he moved. 75-year-old man just packing up everything and going. And then when famine hit, he moved to Egypt. And there's the whole story with Sarah and the king. And then God's promise was slow in coming. So what did Abraham do? He sleeps with Hagar. And Ishmael is born at 86. So he waited 10, 11 years. And then thought, well, maybe he misunderstood God's promise and took it in his own hands. But then at 99, God sent messengers and told him that you would have a son from Sarah. I mean, I love the story about him laughing, and then Sarah laughing. It hence the name Isaac. After 25 years of this waiting and all that he'd been through, Abraham finally has Isaac born to him. All the battles and all the travels, God communicated with Abraham the whole time. And now God was telling him to sacrifice his son. Let's continue on from there. I'm sorry, I kind of got off on a little thing here. Early in the morning, Abraham got up, loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw this place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I go, and while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" He goes, "Yes, my son." "The fire and wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went down together. The scripture, it's always troubling. Can you imagine God doing this? Can you imagine God telling you that you have to sacrifice your son? None of us could. And I can't imagine many of us would. But God, he has seen God do some pretty amazing things. He has witnessed the entire city of Sodom being destroyed from above with fire and ash and sulfur. He witnessed kings suffer because of his misdeeds with his wife. His livestock have thrived. His wealth has grown. God has looked out for Abraham no matter what he did. I think it's, to me, it's always been the thing that why was Abraham, who was kind of at times a little disobedient, so favored, and yet the Pharisees of Jesus' time were religiously perfect with the law. They followed it to the point where they made new laws to make sure that they followed the laws completely. There's a whole lot there that doesn't make sense. Or is he expecting God to do something amazing? That's what, that's the thing that when you ask the question, what is he thinking? Does he think God's going to allow him to do this, or is he expecting something big? He didn't tell anybody that he was going to do this. That's the thing about this whole thing, that it sometimes can be a little intimidating, is he doesn't tell it Sarah. He didn't even say anything to the 2 servants that are with him. He keeps it. And Isaac is clueless what's going on. Of course, when we start piling wood around him, I think he got suspicious. Abraham is about to sacrifice his only son. And you have to wonder why. And I think Hebrews says it. This is something that always amazes me. The Bible will reference something 700 years later. But by faith, Abraham was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, "Through Isaac shall your offspring be named." He considered that God was able to even raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. Did Abraham think that God would raise him from the dead? Sounds like it. I mean, the writer of Hebrews was convinced of it. To me, this is a story. This is a story in the stomach wrenching, as far as I'm concerned, decision that Abraham had to make. Or any of us would be, if were forced to make this decision. I mean, how would you do it? I remember my brother was in the hospital and he was really super sick, and he had like 7 heart attacks. And at one point, the hospital came to us and said, "Do you want us to keep reviving him?" And in my heartbreak, I left the room. My sisters were there. My mom was there. I couldn't be involved in a decision like that. I was younger, but it's just my only brother. And I can't imagine if it was my kid, it would even be 10 times worse. So then I was talking to Tom yesterday, and he kind of said something that triggered something, and it was so amazing to me. And it was like a revelation in that it was there the whole time. But picture your Father in heaven. He sent his one and only Son. He watched him grow. He guided him in his mission. He saw him lead a group of ordinary men that will be his church leaders after he's gone. All this while knowing the whole time he would be on that cross. That the men responsible were considered themselves men of God. The heartbreak he must have felt. It's a kid. It's his one and only Son. And he's watching him hanging on a cross, insults being thrown at him, whipped, tied, nailed. It's something that normal people don't experience or get to go through. He must have felt. I can't imagine what he felt. But love is empathy, right? And without empathy, there is no love, I don't believe. And his Son is hanging on the cross, and Jesus went through, and God, I'm struggling here a little bit. My vision is somewhat damaged. All right, so empathy is something that people that love have for people in pain. But Jesus is going through this supernatural pain. Think about having all the sins of humanity pile on your back. Think about being the scene is the light goes, the darkness comes over the land, and the veil is torn, and Jesus descends into hell and carries the sins of every man. God spared Abraham that pain, but went through it himself for us. So this Christmas, we celebrate from the words of Isaiah 9 in verse 6. And I want to end with that, because for to us, a child is born. To us, a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Tonight, we go to bed expecting a child the next day, just like they did 2,000 years ago. And we should look at that with the humility of people given something that they didn't deserve. I pray today this was a blessing to you. It sure was to me. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas. And may someone see Jesus in you. But before they do that, let's see. Oh, Merry Christmas from Pastor Tom. Thank you, Tom, for the help yesterday and my wife sneaking in and peeking at what's going on. I pray this is a blessing to you. Have a firmly rooted day. Merry Christmas. And if I can, I'm just not as fast at this as I should be. And may someone see Jesus in you today.